When I was around 16, my living situation meant I had to drive 2 hours from the city to my parents' rural home about twice a month. Most of that drive was along quiet country roads, flanked by fields of corn or other crops, with the occasional farmhouse dotting the landscape. I'd grown so used to this trip that I didn't think twice about the long stretches with no cell service or phone booths. Nothing had ever happened, so I figured nothing ever would. One evening, as dusk settled in during one of these drives, I noticed a strange flash of light. I brushed it off at first, thinking it might be a trick of my eyes or something fleeting. But then it happened again and again. I wondered if an oncoming car had faulty high beams, but the flashes kept coming, irregular and unsettling. I slowed down to avoid being blinded and to get a better sense of what was ahead. In the distance, I could make out shapes it seemed. As I got closer, my heart sank. There were 4 figures standing across the road, forming a human roadblock. They wore bright white masks and stared directly at me. 2 of them held what looked like bats or long, blunt objects, and one was holding something that seemed to be the source of the flashes, maybe a laser pointer or a flashlight. There was no car near them. No farmhouse, no shed, nothing to explain how they'd gotten there. My mind raced, fueled by every horror movie I'd ever seen and stories of crimes on desolate roads. The encounter felt like it dragged on for an hour, though it was probably just a few minutes. I was creeping along at about 10 miles per hour, trying to process what I was seeing. I had 2 choices: slow down and hope they'd move aside, risking them surrounding my flimsy car, or speed up and barrel through, hoping they'd scatter. I had no way to defend myself. There was a bat in my trunk, but I was a scrawny teenager who could barely fend off a strong breeze, and my car was so rickety that a determined person could probably break in with ease. In the end, I chose to floor it. The sound of gravel and dirt crunching under my tires only heightened my panic. I was terrified I'd veer off the road or, worse, hit someone. But I'd made my choice. As I sped toward them, the 2 directly in my path dove out of the way just in time. I shot past, my heart pounding, and eased off the gas to catch my breath. In my rearview mirror, I saw the other 2 inexplicably running toward my car, as if they could catch up. The reality hit me hard. These weren't kids pulling a prank. These were adults, likely with malicious intent, trying to trap someone on this lonely road. I focused on getting out of there as fast as possible, ignoring the urge to turn on the radio for comfort. The experience left me rattled, but the worst part came when I got home. I discovered that the gravel I'd been driving over wasn't just dirt, it was nails, now embedded in my tires. Miraculously, my sturdy tires held up long enough to get me home, though they were in rough shape. I didn't tell my parents the full story, and they assumed I'd been reckless, or that someone had scattered nails as a prank. My friends, when I told them, downplayed it, saying I was probably safe in my car, and that the group was just trying to scare me. Maybe they're right, but the memory still haunts me every time I drive down a similar road. A friend of mine, a 25-year-old woman I met in college, shared a disturbing story from her high school days in Buffalo, New York. She and her friends loved camping at nearby upstate campgrounds. During her senior year, she and 4 friends rented a cabin by the water at a campsite with rows of cabins. As night fell, they noticed a group of guys around their age, a few cabins down, playing music, dancing around a campfire, and drinking beers. One of the guys invited them to join, and it seemed like a fun, normal hangout at first. But as the night wore on, one of the guys got extremely drunk and pulled out a revolver, claiming it was his dad's. He started waving it around carelessly, freaking out everyone, including his own friends. Things escalated when he began pointing the gun at his own head, laughing, while his friends yelled at him to stop. The girls, understandably shaken, decided to leave and return to their cabin. They discussed how unsettling the incident was and expressed concern for the drunk guy, but eventually moved on to other topics and tried to put it out of their minds. A few hours later, in the middle of the night, a loud bang echoed from the direction of the guy's cabin. Soon after, police cars arrived. An officer came to my friend's cabin, asking questions about the group they'd been with earlier. He revealed that the drunk guy had shot himself in front of his friends. They couldn't tell if it was intentional or an accident. The incident left my friend with lingering PTSD, and she rarely goes camping anymore. In 2018, when I was a junior at SUNY Purchase College, my friends and I decided to sneak into Playland Park in Rye, New York for a thrill. One of my friends, who grew up in Rye, had done it before and said the park wasn't heavily monitored at night. Despite my nerves about getting caught trespassing, I went along with it. Around 1 a.m., we parked near a tall fence and struggled to climb over it, using each other's hands for boosts. I nearly backed out, tempted to wait in the car, but after some effort, I made it over. We wandered through the dark park, smoking a joint with almost all the lights off. We reached the water flume ride, which towered 100 to 150 feet before dropping steeply. My friends decided to climb the technician's staircase for a better view, but my fear of heights kept me grounded. As they ascended, I scanned the park and noticed something odd. We weren't alone. Several hundred feet away, near a pond, I saw a small boat or raft with 4 people wearing headlamp flashlights. Even stranger, 2 dark figures were swimming in the pond, seemingly searching for something underwater. I could barely make out their silhouettes, but after a few minutes, it was clear they'd spotted us. The boat started moving toward us. Panicked, I yelled to my friends, who were too high up to hear me clearly. The boat reached the shore, and the headlamp lights were closing in fast. My friends finally raced down the stairs, and we sprinted down a dimly lit boardwalk toward the fence. I was sure we'd be caught, especially since we were so exposed on the straight path. But we rounded a corner, scrambled over the fence, and piled into the car, speeding off without getting caught. To this day, I'm baffled we escaped. The figures were only a few hundred feet away when they spotted us. I still don't know why people were swimming in a pond at an amusement park at 1:30 a.m. My friend later mentioned rumors that kids had drowned in that pond, making me wonder if they were searching for a body. I scoured the internet for any related news but found nothing. The experience remains a chilling mystery with no clear explanation. My housemates and I, all 21 to 22-year-old women, recently moved into a house near our college campus. Instead of keys, we use a code to unlock the doors. We have 3 calm pets and are close, honest friends, so trust isn't an issue. But strange things started happening. Small items began disappearing from both shared and private space, nothing major, just easy to overlook. The house isn't big, so there aren't many places things could hide. Then things got weirder. We'd leave with all the blinds open, only to return and find them closed. Blankets left out would be neatly folded. Recently, it's gotten creepier. One of my roommates was home alone when she heard a loud thud. All the pets were in the living room with her, so she investigated. Then she heard footsteps and called out, thinking it was one of us. No one answered. Terrified, she grabbed the pets, fled to her car, and waited, convinced someone else was in the house. The other day I was trying on clothes and noticed a foul smell. After some searching, I realized it was coming from the shorts I was wearing. I checked my drawer and found that one row of shorts was stained and reeked of urine pet urine, but distinctly human. We've ruled out every explanation. Our pets, ourselves, even rodents. No rat droppings, nothing. After washing everything, I also noticed 2 identical pairs of my underwear were missing, despite an exhaustive search. There's no way a pet could have taken them. We're at a loss. It feels like we're going crazy. If anyone has a logical explanation, we'd love to hear it, something to help us sleep at night. If not, what should we do? Last night, around 8:30 p.m., I went to the edge of the woods on my property in New Hampshire to set up a blind and deal with coyotes that had been killing my chickens. Locals often talk about bad nights in these woods, an eerie feeling that makes you want to stay away from doors and windows after dark, let alone go outside. Even animals seem quieter on those nights. Luckily, it felt like a good night, so I thought I'd be fine. I set up with a modified long-range handgun, a high-end night vision scope with thermal settings, and a pricey handheld night vision device. For most of the night, I saw nothing. No coyotes, no movement. Around 10:30 p.m., while scanning the field near the tree line with my thermal scope, I spotted a red orb about 4 feet off the ground. It wasn't moving, and the scope read 90 degrees, which was bizarre since it was only 40 degrees out. My scope is high definition. I can clearly see small birds at 50 yards, but this orb was round and staticky, unlike anything natural. It was well within my 50-yard range, so the lack of clarity made no sense. When I switched to night vision mode, it vanished. I didn't see anything else like it that night, but around 11 p.m., my handheld night vision scope started acting up. The brightness fluctuated wildly, and it kept turning on and off for no reason. I assumed the battery was dying and set it aside. But the next day, in the same 40-degree weather, it worked perfectly. Then, around midnight, as I was packing up after failing to spot any coyotes, my gun jammed, and the animals I'd been tracking bolted. As I stood there, I swear I heard a laugh echo across the hill. With few trees to muffle it, I couldn't pinpoint this source. I thought it might be my neighbor, who lives across the field, not in the direction I was aiming for safety's sake. The next morning, I jokingly asked my neighbor if she'd laughed at my missed shot. She was confused and said no one in her house was awake or outside at that hour. I'm at a loss. Could something in the woods be messing with my equipment and mocking me? Or is it just malfunctions? My gear is top tier and shouldn't fail like that only to work fine the next day. I'm heading out again tonight and plan to record if anything strange happens. What do you think? As a high school freshman, I had a terrifying Halloween night with my tight-knit group of friends, all girls who'd grown up together in a rural town outside city limits. Too cool for trick-or-treating but not yet invited to Halloween parties, we decided to go rolling yards, a southern prank where you throw toilet paper into trees to create streams of paper. It's a thrill, sneaking down dark, rural roads, knowing you could get caught and grounded or forced to clean up the mess. Our target was a creepy house down the road from my friend T's place, where her family raised chickens on 50 acres. This house had been the subject of scary stories among us for years. We'd pass it on walks after school, but no one ever seemed to come or go. T's parents, especially her mom, who worked in law enforcement, warned us to stay away, hinting that the man who lived there was trouble. Naturally, that made it the perfect target for our Halloween prank. T's older sister, B, 17, and the cool sibling who loved our antics, drove us to Walmart around 11:30 p.m. after her parents were asleep. We piled into her car, blasting 2000s hip-hop, and filled 2 carts with cheap toilet paper, giggling as the clerk eyed us suspiciously. Back at T's, we planned our attack. B would park a mile away on a dirt road by cow pastures and wait. The 5 of us split into teams, creeping along the woods by the road to avoid passing cars, arms loaded with toilet paper. We stashed our rolls at the entrance to the man's long gravel driveway, let's call him Mr. Sand, began sneaking through the woods toward his house. The adrenaline was overwhelming, crickets screaming in the background. We whispered frantically to stay quiet as we neared the house, spotting a faint light by Mr. S's garage. The house was far creepier at night, and the thought of getting caught by this man we'd been warned about made me nauseous. T, the boldest of us, darted toward the garage to scout, signaling that the house was dark and Mr. S was likely asleep. I was paralyzed with fear, but a friend pushed me toward a tall oak tree right in front of the house, the worst spot possible. I tore open a roll and flung it into the branches, watching the paper stream down. Soon we were all tossing rolls, streams of white cascading from every tree. We grew cocky, fearless. Then T froze and hissed for us to be quiet. Lights were flickering on inside the house. My heart leapt into my throat as T whisper yelled, "Run!" We dropped our rolls and bolted into the pitch-black woods. One friend tripped, and I helped her up just as gunshots rang out from the house. Mr. S was screaming, "You think you're funny. Not so funny when I find you." We ran, crying and gasping, toward the driveway entrance. Then we heard something worse. The slow rumble of a diesel truck coming down the gravel. We dove deeper into the woods, covering our mouths to stay silent. Mr. S stopped his truck about 30 yards away, got out, and slung a shotgun over his shoulder. He scanned the opposite side of the driveway, listening intently. I was certain we'd be found and killed. No one but B knew where we were, and she was a mile away, oblivious. I fought back tears, watching Mr. S's shadow as he raised his shotgun and fired into the air. I nearly fainted from fear when car lights appeared up the road. I worried they'd expose us, but it was B. She rolled down her window, yelling loudly as if talking to the police, giving Mr. Hiley S's address. Furious, he ran toward her car, cursing and waving his gun, then backed off. As soon as he drove back toward his house, we sprinted to B's car, piled in, and cried hysterically, drenched in sweat. No one spoke the whole way back to T's. We showered, but I could hear sniffles all night. We never told T or B's parents, and for years we didn't even discuss it among ourselves. We never went rolling again. A week later, B admitted she'd faked the 911 call, too scared of getting in trouble to report it for real. We were naive, more afraid of punishment than the very real danger we'd faced. Looking back, we were incredibly lucky to escape unharmed. Someone was watching over us that night. When I was a kid, my family moved into an old house where odd but harmless things happened, like footsteps creaking on the hardwood floors. We brushed it off as the house settling. But as time went on, stranger things occurred. When I was 13, on the last day of school, I had a sleepover with my best friend Fran, another friend Sarah, and 2 other girls from school. Fran and Sarah slept upstairs in my bedroom, while I and the other 2 stayed downstairs. The next morning, Fran and Sarah looked shaken and asked if I was okay. Confused, I said I was fine and asked why. They said they'd heard my parents yelling at me and me crying loudly on the stairs before they fell asleep. They were certain it was me. But I told them nothing like that happened to me, and the other girls had gone to bed without any issues. Fran and Sarah insisted they weren't joking, swearing they'd heard it clearly. Later that summer, Fran was sleeping over again. We were inseparable, practically family. We were in the downstairs bedroom, chatting, when we heard the front door open. We heard my brother Danny and cousin Jake talking as they came in, joking about raiding the kitchen. It was strange because they both lived in another state, but we assumed they were visiting. We heard them climb the stairs and didn't think much of it, falling asleep soon after. The next morning, there was no sign of them, no car, no bags, nothing. When we asked my mom, she was baffled. They hadn't visited and were still in another state. Another night, I was alone in bed and kept hearing my dad on the phone late at night. I heard him dialing and his muffled voice, going on for ages. Curious, I crept downstairs and peeked into my parents' room. They were both fast asleep, and the landline wasn't even in there. This was the 90s, and the phone was elsewhere. I can't explain any of these incidents, and they've stayed with me, unforgettable and unsettling.